What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is another great week of the college football game plan with your host, Dan Moneyline Miller, along with my expert analysis, Ray Greyfox. Ray, how you doing today, buddy?
What's going on, Dan? Opening day of muzzleloader season here in the mountains of Virginia. Spent the morning in the woods, had a bear sighting and saw one buck. Did not shoot anything, however, but happy to be out there. Good to be spending time in the woods. It's an exciting time for us here. And then more exciting is we are in week 10, Dan, week 10 of college football.
I know. I can't believe it's already been 10 weeks, Ray. It's really gone by quickly. And, we got a couple great games on this slate today, and a lot of ranked versus ranked games. And let's dive right into this one. As this is the game of the week, I'm pretty sure. Ohio State Buckeyes -3 on the road to face the Penn State Nittany Lions. Buyback on them is +136, total 47.5. Ray, do we think the Penn State Nittany Lions could get this one done today?
Is James Franklin still coaching Penn State?
Yes, he is.
No will be the answer to that. I can't believe this game's being played at noon, honestly. I figured this would be a night game, a whiteout. I don't know if they're still doing the whiteout. They don't, it doesn't hit as hard during the daytime as it does at night. But Ohio State, Penn State here, two teams very similar in my ratings. Ohio State here has won 11 of the last 12 straight up, Dan. Last time here, Ohio State won 44-31 as 15.5-point favorites. Last year, Ohio State 20-12 as a winner there. Penn State has been 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 in this contest. But keep in mind, folks, when you see numbers like that, a team, hey, 5-2 against the spread is a great little run. But let's look at the numbers that Penn State was getting handed to them. +19, +10.5, +19.5, +15.5. And then it tightened up a little last year at +4, where they did not cover. But again, generally of late, Ohio State has been a much larger favorite than what we see here today. 5 of the last 6 for the total bettors out there. 5 of the last 6 have gone under the total. So look for a low scoring affair. Again, I tend to focus on defense. When I do my ratings, when I print out my ratings sheet, it looks like this. I also print one that rates defense, just the defensive statistics. And it's so funny to see that page is almost all positively rated teams. In other words, if you play good defense, you're generally playing good football. Good defense travels is the old saying they like to say. And today there'll be no difference. Ohio State, 255.1 yards per game. Penn State defensively, 267.7. So again, expect the defenses to shine here. Look for this game to be played conservatively. But as I stated, it's not that Ryan Day is any kind of big game killer. I'm not gonna dub him that. Franklin, however, is just a great recruiter. Give him credit where credit's due. But honestly, in games like this, he just never finds a way to get over the hump. I'm not sure that he does today. I know there's some injury news on Aller. I haven't seen an update on that. It doesn't bother me if he plays or not. I think Ohio State's the side here. Short number as they travel to Penn State. Great defensive clash. Look for, a really tight, closely played game, which, again, works right into Franklin's weakness, right? It's a big game. It's probably going to be played tight. It's going to require good coaching. And, I'm going to give Ryan Day the nod there. I think this Buckeye team is a little more loaded than Penn State. I'd take Ohio State and lay the points here, Dan.
Yeah, per USA Today, this is not going to be the whiteout game for Penn State. Ohio State leads the series 24-14, Ray. And I want to be pretty blunt here and to say that I can count on the number of fingers that Penn State has been ranked above Ohio State when they played. So a lot of these trends are kind of favoring Ohio State, but that's because Ohio State has always been ranked better, I would say, than Penn State in years past. So this is, I would say, an anomaly. But again, I really like this Ohio State team, like you said, and James Franklin, big games. You just really can't trust the guy. So I love all your points there, Ray, and I think I'm going with Ohio State too. Next game we have on the dock here is Duke at Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida, a 21-point favorite. That's a 3 touchdowns there. Total 54.5. Ray, Do we think Miami stays undefeated?
I do think they stay undefeated today. This is a positively rated Duke team, not a common thing for them. Manny Diaz making his triumphant return to Coral Gables, former head coach and coordinator at the U. I knew Marquise was going to chime in here. It was almost like guaranteed that if he was watching and we cover the U, he's going to dive in on the U. But Diaz returns here. Diaz, interestingly enough, was the one that started the turnover chain at Miami that we see when they put the big chain with the U around the guy's neck. That was Diaz's idea. So still going there. One of the positives he left behind. But visitor here, 5-1 straight up and against the spread in this series. So there's some hope for you Duke Blue Devil fans out there. Miami 15-5 all time, but has lost 3 of the last 5. So again, this Miami team, we're starting to see it come back to its winning ways. The Schnellenberger, the Johnson, the coaches that were there that built the great tradition of the early 80s where they just didn't lose games. I mean, this is a team, you may be too young to remember, Dan, but showed up for a bowl game and walked off the airplane in full camo. Just didn't even care. Like, they're like, we'll rock camo. Jerome Brown, I think, was on that team. He was legendary. I mean, I could sit here and go on for hours about great players that played for the U. Another cool thing we're seeing is that they're bringing that back. Mario Cristobal, former offensive lineman for Miami, now the head coach, he's encouraging. There is no let's watch who we have. Let's make sure we're careful with who we have on the sidelines. Michael Irvin always makes a big appearance, but we're seeing other guys now. Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, all the greats are coming back, and they're being encouraged to come back. And, I think there was an AD there that did not want to hire Cristobal, and it wasn't until that AD got fired that they went and grabbed Cristobal from Oregon. Great hire for Miami. Miami, much the better team today. The under in this series of late, 5-1 again for you total bettors. This one has trended under of late. I think way too many horses for a Miami team that, we've talked about my ratings. And again, if we do them in week 3 and week 4, schools like Mississippi, Missouri, they were just off the charts, and their rating has just dropped as they get into conference play. Miami's has sort of not done that. I mean, let's be fair. They're not playing in the SEC. They do not have a ranked team on their schedule remaining. I did take the over on their regular season win total. I believe it was 9.5. So looking for them to get that 10th win. Feel pretty good about that with the remaining schedule. They do get Duke at home here. I just feel like they're going to come out hitting on all cylinders. And I look for this team to finish the season strong and be a playoff team, man.
Yeah, Marquise Jones, thanks for chiming in. He likes the Miami team total over 37.5. What are your thoughts on that one? They didn't include that last game.
Marquise knows they're not. This is not a Miami team that's going to take their foot off the pedal. I mean, 37.5 looks like a huge number, but is it going to shock anybody if they put 28 or 35 up in the first half against this team? Duke's, like I said, positively rated team for me, and that's in my ratings. If you're in the green as it shows up on my chart, you're a good football team. I mean, you're a solid football team. Green teams that are positively rated do not finish the season with a losing record generally. So, again, this is not a lay down game for Miami. This is a Duke team that'll come in obviously charged with Diaz at the helm. I don't mind that Miami over total points, Marquise, because I just feel like Cristobal is trying to grab all the energy he can down there at Coral Gables. And there's not going to be any let up here, I guarantee, with Manny Diaz across the sideline.
Yeah, and out of the 8 games they played, Ray, 7 times they have eclipsed that 37.5 point total. So if you like that, that's a good bet there, Marquise. On to the next game we have here is Ole Miss at Arkansas. Ole Miss on the road is an 8-point favorite here, total 54.5. Buyback on the Arkansas Razorbacks is plus 250, Ray. Do we think Arkansas – I like this Arkansas team. Talk to me about this one.
I agree, absolutely. And it's funny because this line has done nothing but go up.
Yeah.
6.5 early, saw 7, saw 7.5. I've even seen people on social media posting a +8. Haven't seen that personally. Again, this Mississippi team at one point, and my ratings have always, for some reason, been in love with Mississippi. And I'm going back years here where they didn't even have, they had an 8-win team, but their rating was always a little higher than what they tend to finish the season at. This is a team whose rating has come down. Earlier in the season, I think I remember mentioning on a show, I was like, if they finish the season with this rating, they'll be undefeated and uncontested national champs. They obviously have now dropped the game. Right around plus 23 in my figures. Arkansas is a positive as well. I actually like Arkansas a little bit in this game. I think it's a really good spot at home. And historically, Arkansas here, Dan, has covered 10 of the last 11. 10 of the last 11, Arkansas on the cover, including 4 straight. So a nice run for Arkansas here against the number, against Ole Miss. They get the home field today. Arkansas has pulled six outright upsets since 2014. So for those of you that like to load up your Marquise Jones 10-team parlays with a plus money line, this wouldn't be a bad spot to do that. They pulled the outright upset 6 times in the last 10 years. Ole Miss last win in Fayetteville was 2018. And the visitor here, which would be Mississippi, Ole Miss, has lost the last 5. So a lot of signs historically in this game pointing to Arkansas. I like the little bit of edge this Arkansas team has going here, and a lean with me at Arkansas plus the number, especially over a touchdown. So lean for me, Arkansas plus the points, Dan.
Yeah, I like that. And if you're there might be some weather here in this game, Ray. I do see some thunder showers that are likely to happen, so we might see a delay. Talk to me about that, because we saw last time I remember West Virginia was playing Kansas, and there was a massive delay there. And Kansas looked like they were the right side until that delay happened. And, do delays really hurt the underdogs or the favorites more, do you think?
I feel like delays and weather favor the dogs. I feel like anytime, obviously, bad weather is literally evens the playing field, as they say. And so if you get some bad weather and it does cause a delay, listen, I think these coaches are well equipped. It's just like in the NFL, basically. They've got food on hand. They're going to keep they have nutritionists on staff, strength training on staff. They're going to keep these players in the right space to go out there. And they generally know about an hour in advance when they're going to start back up. So this isn't something that would overly concern me, but in my opinion, any tweaks with games, time starting or delays, or certainly weather always favors the dog, in my opinion, Dan.
Yeah. Oh, you just every angle I'm trying to pick out, Ray. So, just
killing it, dude. Killing it.
Trying to get everyone, thank you all for listening. I want to thank my Uncle Dave for listening, my mom, my pops, everyone back East Coast who loves me and enjoys listening. Thank you so much. If you want to follow us on YouTube, on Twitter, please do. And nukethehouse.com. That's the main point, ladies and gentlemen, nukethehouse.com. Make sure you become a subscriber and click the link. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube and get post notifications, because that helps us out. That helps you out become a better. So, ladies and gentlemen, please hit that like and subscribe button. Going on to the military academies here, Ray, we have Air Force. Thank you for everyone who has served. Air Force on the road facing Army. Ray, this has come down a lot. I mean, last night this was at like 22 points, I'm pretty sure. Now Army is laying an 18-point favorite. So that's a 4-point swing, right? Total here at 38.5. Buyback in Air Force is plus 650. Ray, does Army roll in this one? I mean, I feel like the money's on the wrong side here. Talk to me about this one.
Yeah, this one's interesting, and I kind of can see where this is going, right? I mean, first of all, let me just talk about the ratings here. The ratings say this number should be higher than it even opened, in my opinion. The only reason I leaned against a full game play here, Dan, it is Military Academy versus Military Academy. And if Army gets up at all in this game, it's just going to be grinded out. They're not going to try to put up points. They're not going to try to embarrass their fighting brothers that they're going to be sharing the next 5 years with, protecting and guarding our country. Shout out to a friend who actually had a bad work accident. He's actually was a retired member of the Air Force, and another friend was with him who's actually a retired member of the Army. So made me think of them during this game. I hope Dave Wyatt, I hope everything's going good with you, buddy, and you're feeling better. Slight lean for me here, Dan, and I saw this just before show. Army first half minus 11, and that's down from 13.5. So I think anything under 2 touchdowns here, I think Army can get on top of them. This is the second leg of the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. We did play on Navy when they played Air Force, and they covered handily for us there. I'm not sure where the back end money's coming from on Air Force. Like I said, the only angle I see is that it is a Military Academy v. Military Academy. But I think Army's just trying to do their thing right now. I mean, they've still got some couple big games ahead of them that could determine whether they have a shot at the college football playoff. Air Force 1-6 against the spread versus Army since 2017. So this has been sort of a one side. Army's ridiculously, both teams are well coached, but Army is really, really well coached. And they've got the turnover. We see this in military academies. You're not going to maintain like a Georgia or an Alabama or a Clemson did of a 10-win. You can't do it at military academies. Obviously no portal, no NIL, and you have to build teams. You have to build that strong senior class. Last 10 meetings, Dan, have gone under the total, and they have averaged 28 points per game. So again, when you see a big number and a low total, I mean, that can guide you to a lot of places. But here, again, last 10 meetings under, averaging 28 points per game. Air Force, oddly enough, leads the all-time series 38-19-1. The Army defense, this is where I think the difference is going to be, Dan, today. And I hope to see it in the first half, so I get this cover on this first half number that I bought. But Army defensively, 281.8 yards per game. Air Force is giving up 409 yards. This Army offense can certainly put up points. We've seen that all year long. This is not Notre Dame that they're playing like Navy had to deal with a big uptick in opponent quality. This is a game they play every year. And again, I think defensively, that's going to spell a huge difference in this game. I like Army in the first half, anything from 11, anything under 14, 11, 12, 13, whatever you can get there. I think Army's offense is too much for this Air Force defense. It struggles.
Philip, thanks for chiming in. He said he's grabbed 10.5 minus 102 on Army first half. So that's a good bet.
Great grab, Philip. Great grab, buddy.
Hopefully that comes in for you. Thank you for chiming in again. Going to the next game, Ray, we have, and he said that's on FanDuel, by the way. Next game we have is Minnesota. This is a Big Ten matchup between Minnesota on the road, 2.5-point favorite here, to face Illinois, the Fighting Illini. Buyback on them is plus 114, total 47 here, Ray. Do we have – this is a example of a unranked team going on the road to face a ranked team who is at home and they're underdogs, Ray. Talk to me about this one. Is this a trap game?
Hey, folks, if you think it's a trap, just walk out of that trap and don't bet it. That's what I'll say to you. Do not put yourself on tilt, because no matter what you do, you're going to put yourself on tilt. If you take the trap, if you avoid the trap, if you dodge the trap, whatever you do, it's going to put you straight on tilt. So the minute the word trap comes into your mind, just pass. The odds maker has to make a number. You don't have to bet it. Minnesota leads the all-time series here 40-33-3. Minnesota has lost the last three straight up and against the spread, and they were favored in all three. So recency bias goes to Illinois. Illinois defensively giving up close to 400 yards per game. Minnesota, meanwhile, is down around 300. I've actually got this Illinois team rated a little bit below average. So they could be a team that's sort of ballooned their way into their current status. Minnesota, I think, is a little bit better team today, quite frankly. They have the better defense. And this is just a matchup of two really good quality head coaches, Dan, and Brett Bielema and PJ Fleck. PJ Fleck with the, what is it, row the boat or whatever, whatever his saying is at Minnesota. The kids seem to buy into it. I think Minnesota has a slight edge here today on the road. But, again, conference road games, they're whether you want to call it a trap or whatever words you want to use, it's not gonna be a walkover, I don't think, for Minnesota. If they do go in there and beat Illinois, they're gonna have to play a really good ball game, and Fleck's gonna have to have them ready, Dan.
Yep. His saying is row the boat. So
row the boat. That's it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is going to be a tough game, and the odds makers have Minnesota favored for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not a trap game, right? So all right, going to the next one, we have a 3:30 p.m. EST. We have number 1 ranked Oregon going on the road to face your last year's national championship team, who is now 5-3, the Michigan Wolverines. Oregon is a 14.5-point favorite here. Buyback on Michigan is plus 500, total 45 here, Ray. Do we think the Ducks roll?
The quack attack. Oregon's a much better, let's just be honest. Oregon's a much, much better football team. Michigan just below average in the negative numbers on my ratings. Oregon has come down quite a bit from their earlier they were another team early on that was just steamrolling people and their rating was through the roof. It's come down a little to a more pedestrian level. It is a rating that would indicate that they are obviously a playoff team this year. Michigan won the first three, Dan, but no recency there. 1948, 1960, and 1973. That was Michigan's 3 wins in this series. Oregon has grabbed the last 2 since. If you remember, it was I lived in and around Boone, North Carolina. So if you've ever been around Appalachian State, you cannot go, and I mean like an hour around Boone, you cannot go into a bar and there's not some massive display of App State beating Michigan, whether it's a massive photo, a piece of a bleacher, whatever the hell it is. It's history in that part of the country. It was the week after Michigan lost to App State. Oregon thrashed them 39-7. So they got back-to-back beatdowns from App State and Oregon. 2 decent defenses here. Michigan's not quite traditionally where they've been. So in the last couple of years when they knocked off Ohio State, they had a defense that was down around 250 yards per game, which is phenomenal. I mean, I don't think I have to tell anybody that. They're a little bit higher this year at around 330 yards per game. Oregon checks in with the better defense at just over 300. But here's where you may see the big difference today, folks. And again, I'm not going to sit here and stomp on Michigan's home field advantage. It's a ridiculously good home field advantage. The place is called the Big House. It holds well over 100,000, and they should be pretty motivated today to welcome in the number 1 team in the country. But offensively, Michigan averaging 300 yards per game. So again, averaging less on offense than they're giving up on defense, never a sign of sustainability. And Oregon, on the other hand, offensively, 464 yards per game. Massive advantage from Oregon. I'm not sure what Michigan can do today I don't think they have the defense, obviously, to hold this Oregon offense in check. I just feel like Oregon today, they've obviously the odds makers are well aware, throwing the hook on the 14 on the road in the Big House. I mean, you could probably go back a long, long way before you saw Michigan catching 14.5 at home, especially to what I would consider, a former Pac-10 team, right? So the numbers obviously very strong here. It's right where, again, my ratings give it an 18 on neutral field. So if you play the game there in Michigan, it should be sitting around 14, which is right where it's at. It's a no play for me, but I just don't see any way that Michigan can hold down this Oregon offense with the defense that they bring into the game, Dan.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've been kind of fading this Oregon team, which has not been working out for me. So honestly, I'm going to wait, and I'm not going to bet this game because I think Oregon kind of rolls. But then, you got the Michigan team who's doesn't really know their true identity yet. And so I'm just going to stay away. I think that the 14.5 is too large here for my liking. And I'm done losing money on Oregon is pretty much the bottom line. So we are moving on from that game is to another ranked versus unranked team, Florida on the road to face number 2 ranked Georgia. An SEC battle here. We have Georgia laying another 14.5 points, total 52.5. Buyback on the Gators is plus 500. Ray, can the Gators keep this game close?
No, they might have had a chance if they were playing it in the swamp, but this one, as we all know, will be played on a neutral field in Jacksonville. Both teams are off a bye, so there is no off-bye bias. Ladies and gentlemen, we are welcoming in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, is what it's referred to.
Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yep. They're going to move this. I did see a note that this game's going to do. I think it's they're going to do sort of a quasi home. It's going to be played in Atlanta, and then I think in Tampa. I could be wrong about that, but I know they're going to move off the Jacksonville thing for they booked some sites in the future that are going to be, obviously Athens is just basically a suburb of Atlanta, and then they're going to do one in Florida that's going to be closer to where UF is, that closer to Gainesville. So it'll be like a quasi home. This game, obviously, I met my wife. My wife's a Georgia alum. I met my wife on St. Simon's Island. That was always the staging area for dog fans. They would come from Athens. They would stay in St. Simon's. That puts them like 30 minutes to the stadium in Jacksonville. And it's obviously St. Simon's and Jekyll Island. If you're an old dog fan like me, you know that there's some great calls by Mr. Munson. One of those is on the on the Scott reception when he run Lindsey, run Lindsey, run, and then he says there's going to be a lot of property damage on St. Simons and Jekyll Island tonight. So just some great. If you want to look up some great calls, look up the Georgia Florida. Some of his calls are unbelievable. Talks about breaking an all metal chair with a 4-inch cushion. They don't make announcers like him anymore. One of the true greats of the game. Shout out to him. Fave has covered 7 of the last 8 here. 7 of the last 8 have gone to the favorite against the spread. 9 of the last 10 here, Dan, decided by double digits. I think you have to go back to 20 when maybe it was a COVID year or something goofy that Florida got them big. But Florida has lost 6 of the last 7. Yeah, COVID was the only win in that stretch, the 2020 season. Florida clipped Georgia there. Florida last lost 4 straight to Georgia, 78-83. So that was the last time you had Georgia run off 4 in a row. They would be in position to do that if they get the win today. And again, the defensive, we talked about defenses. Florida's defense just under 400 yards a game. You know, there was a lot of talk earlier in the year, whether it was the quarterback, I can't remember, Graham, the Metzler, something, the guy that basically tore his ACL and he was out for the year. And then they bring in Lagway, DJ Lagway, the true freshman. And that was like big talk around there because one of the hot seat guys is certainly Billy Napier at Florida. You hear a lot of talk about he could be gone, but he's tied directly. He's the reason Lagway is there. And Lagway was one of the nation's most highest recruited quarterbacks in the country. He's hanging in there as a true freshman, to be quite honest. He's got a bright future. So those two are sort of tied together. I think they're, if anything, Lagway is sort of Napier's insurance policy or parachute, if you will. I feel like, if they want to see this kid develop, they probably want to keep Napier around to do it. I think if they ask Napier, Lagways immediately enters the portal. Georgia, again, another team like Michigan, generally around 270 a game defensively. They're giving up 333 this year. So that's why you see the rating where you see it for Georgia. This is as low as a Georgia team has been rated in my ratings for a number of years now, like probably 4. So I don't know that they're going to, I certainly wouldn't call them a favorite to win it all. I think it's an uphill climb for Georgia to get there this year. They should get to the playoff, but again, they've got a couple of tough games coming on the schedule. I think they've got Mississippi still to play, and there's one other game I know that caught my eye. This is a nice game in a neutral site. I encourage everyone to watch. It's a very historical game, huge game in the South. Again, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. It will be on at my house. We will all be pulling for the Dogs.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you. I don't like Florida, so I'm all for Georgia. We have a question here, Ray. Oklahoma at Maine at Oklahoma. Total here.
We found a game that Oklahoma could win.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. We've had a game Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 37.5 point favorite at home versus Maine. Total 48.5. Right. I don't know if you have this game on hand, but do you think the total goes over 48.5?
Philip, I appreciate you coming in with this. Here's the issue I have with this total going over. Oklahoma, if they do anything halfway remotely decent, they play a little bit of defense. And I just don't. Do you expect Maine to score in this game? I can't. The Black Bears. I don't start following 1AA until we get closer to the playoffs. I do like to bet some games once we get into the FCS playoffs. I do follow the teams that generally tend to make it there. Haven't been following, obviously, Maine this year. I did catch some Maine games growing up at the University of Delaware. They were usually some fairly contested games. My issue with the total there is that I don't know that Oklahoma's certainly not. Who knows what they can score on Maine, but they can't score on anybody else. But their defenses should be good enough to keep Maine, pretty quiet throughout this one. So that's a good off the wall one there, Philip. But I would probably have to lean under. If I had to go any direction on that total, I would have to lean under.
Yeah, I'm watching this Oklahoma team. They're just they don't wow me. So both teams are now are going into the matchup 4-4, Ray. So take that what you want. So going to the next game we have is Texas Tech on the road to face Iowa State. Iowa State is a 13.5 point favorite, so just under that 2 touchdown favorite here. Total 56. Buyback on the Texas Tech Red Raiders is plus 390. Talk to me about this one.
This is an Iowa State team that I've really liked. It was funny. I started the season pretty high on Iowa, and thought they were going to be the best team in Iowa this year. They are not. It's that title will clearly belong to Iowa State Cyclones. They are off a bye. Iowa State is. So if you like that bias, they did have had some extra time to prepare for the Red Raider. Texas Tech won the last two straight up after dropping 5 straight up and against the spread. So bit of a seesaw affair. Iowa State grabs 5 in a row against the number, and then Texas Tech comes back and grabs the next 2. Since 2020, Texas Tech is 3-11 straight up, 5-9 against the spread in Big 12 road dogs, which they are today. They are a Big 12 team. They are playing a Big 12 team. They are on the road, and they are a dog. Not very good is Texas Tech in that situation since 2020. The Texas Tech defense, another issue you're going to have. It's for me, like I said, defense travels. And so if I'm looking at a game and, it's so much easier to side with a team if all signs and all the data is pointing to a pick. When I see that they have the much stronger defense, it just sort of eases you a little bit. You know that defenses travel. That's the reality of it. Big time offenses, a lot of things can derail them. Weather can derail them. Just a good defensive scheme for the day can derail them, or a good matchup or two defensively. But good defenses tend to travel. This Texas Tech defense is not a good defense. It's yielding 445 yards per game. Iowa State down around that. They've come up a little bit in recent weeks, but they've been hovering just below 300. They're just over that number now. Offensively, Texas Tech and Iowa State both around 450 points per game. So again, 450 yards per game, excuse me. So again, it looks like to be the kind of game where the Iowa State defense should be able to shut Texas Tech's offense down a little bit more. And again, their offense is plenty potent as well. The lean for me here is on Iowa State at home. Just such a defensive advantage against the Texas Tech team that should make Iowa State's offense look very good today.
Yeah, and the Iowa State's really looking forward to that college football playoff. So they're going to, continue to put their foot on the gas pedal there. So all points are leaning towards Iowa State there. Next one,
Marquise's comment is priceless. Blacksburg Middle could put 45 up on Maine.
I tried to leave that one up there, but I didn't want to bother you when you were breaking that one down.
That's perfect. Philip, you started a riot in here. He went over and now behind the back.
So
knock him out of the park, Philip. Knock him out of the park. It's Oklahoma, Maine. I love that.
Yeah, I honestly never even heard of Maine. I didn't think they had a football team.
Oh yeah, the Black Bears. They're the Black Bears.
Yeah, well, that shows you how much I know about college football sometimes. But going into the next one we have here, right, is Indiana, a Big Ten showdown here, right? Yes, Big Ten showdown. Indiana, undefeated, 13th ranked, 8-0 on the road to face Michigan State. Indiana is a 7.5-point favorite here. Total 53.5. Buyback on the Michigan State Spartans is plus 245. Talk to me about this one. I don't think Michigan State covers.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of these games, right? We're seeing a lot of 7.5s, 14.5s. These are conference affairs. They most of these games have a clear favorite. Indiana, big surprise this year. Game day goes there. They pull off the big win against Washington last week. Definitely a jacked atmosphere for Indiana. They had the Lee Corso day. Coach got to meet his old players. It was a warm and fuzzy moment in Indiana football. If you're a fan of that squad, you haven't had a whole lot of warm and fuzzy moments in your entire life, honestly. Known for their basketball, not so much for their football. Same could be said for Michigan State, and quite frankly, a lot of the Big Ten. That's where we struggle with some of these teams, like we talked about with Ohio State and Penn State. When Michigan is off like they are this year, you're going to look at Ohio State and Penn State's schedule, and you're just going to, by the end of the year, you're going to go, they really haven't played anybody. You could say that about Miami, but Miami still, if they, they're still going to have to compete with Clemson's and Virginia Tech's and such as that. It's just these Big Ten teams. There's just not a lot of meat in that conference. Indy sort of takes over Michigan's spot here. Again, Michigan is a negative rated team in my ratings. Indiana is maintaining a strong rating, which is a playoff indicator to, rating for me. They are a team that looks like they are playoff ready this year. Again, who's going to win the Big Ten? Quite frankly, we're going to see a lot today in this Ohio State Penn State game, but Indiana is definitely going to have a say going down the stretch here. Indy has won their last 2 times visiting East Lansing. after they went on an 8-game skid there. So again, Michigan State dominated up till recently, and then Indiana has now grabbed the last 2 in East Lansing. The last Indy win in 2022 was their only Big Ten win of the season. So again, just to reiterate that when we talk about what a culture change that the head coach has brought there, they won 1 Big Ten conference game in 2022. So kudos to that football coach, Signetti. He's out of JMU, great football coach. But that's what I'm talking about when I talk about culture. This is not a team. You don't win 1 conference game and then you rattle off an undefeated season. Huge step here for Signetti and his troops. I don't know that Michigan State can shut this team down. If you want to buy into some kind of letdown after last week's big game day, I generally don't bet into such things. I think there's probably more media fodder than it is anything else. Having been in locker rooms, that kind of stuff just doesn't really occur to players and coaches that are participating in the game that week. There is no such thing as, we're just not going to prepare because it's Michigan State. These guys get paid a lot of money to prepare their players, and now the players are getting paid a lot of money. So, Indiana defensively outstanding, 290 yards per game, and putting up close to 460 yards per game. Michigan State sort of pedestrian in everything they do, 340 yards defensively, 350 offensively. So again, I think unless Indy just is meltdown after winning game day, which that's sort of a bad reason for a letdown when you're undefeated and you have a chance for a college football playoff. I think Signetti is a great football coach. Won't allow that to happen. The only thing you'd probably fear with the number here would be a backdoor type scenario. But Indy's the team here.
Yeah, and right to your point of the letdown spot, I think that's really key right now to look at, because now with the NIL being so prevalent, you have kids earning a lot of money, right? So money is now involved in this. So it's not just like, we're just looking ahead to next week, right? They're getting paid for this game to play right now. So, that look ahead spot or that letdown spot that used to be kind of prevalent back in the day is completely gone out the door in my opinion, right? You got kids earning millions of dollars, and if they don't perform the way they want to, they might lose that sponsorship. So they got to play every single game the way they want to continuously earn that NIL deal, and again continue their career path hopefully to go to the NFL. So I just wanted to point that out there, Ray, because that was good on your end. Now going on to another SEC battle here, we have 10th ranked Texas A&M on the road to face South Carolina. Texas A&M, the Aggies are a 3-point favorite here, total 44. Buyback on the South Carolina Gamecocks is plus 124. Talk to me about this one, Ray.
This was one that caught my eye early. It was funny because I was looking at the openers and it was like, this one just got smashed right from jump. I think I saw it open at 5. It went like 5-4, 3.5, like just literally within seconds. Somebody was obviously waiting to unload briefcases on Coach Beamer and his South Carolina Charges. This game is being played in Columbia. Fantastic home field for South Carolina, and South Carolina is off the bye. Both teams actually positive in my ratings. This is a game that, again, looking at it nakedly, you'd think, well, Texas A&M's rolling right now. They're hot. They should go in there and take care of the South Carolina team. Beamer's just a really good – he's just a guy that coaches really good as a dog, and certainly as a home dog. So, and another interesting stat about South Carolina this year, you very rarely see this. They play nobody off a bye this year. So they do not face any teams that are off a bye. That's kind of weird, but I just figured I'd bring it up. They have covered, South Carolina has, their last 2 versus the Aggies. 6 of the last 8 for you total bettors have gone under the total. 46.5 points per game has been the average in those last 8. South Carolina brings the better defense here today, 298.3 yards per game. Again, anytime you're dipping under 300, you're a team that's worth backing, and certainly worth backing at home. I think Texas A&M probably got a little boost off that win last week. I believe it was LSU that they knocked off. The one issue you may have today is South Carolina offensively. Can they put up the numbers necessary if this game does turn into a little bit of a track meet? But again, the trend here is under the total. I would have to lean. I did not bet this game, Dan, but my lean would be with South Carolina. Never been a big fan of Shane Beamer. ever since Wakegate, when he found Wake's playbook, and the game ended in a 6-6 tie at Virginia Tech. And I think they lost the game in overtime. So the literal saying of you can't even win if we give you our playbook always will be in my mind with Shane Beamer. He's a good football coach. Don't get me wrong. It's just that moment. I kind of just thought that was a classless moment, a little slip up on his part. Guy who was elevated rather quickly, obviously due to the prestige of his father. Got in under his father's wings, but he's making his own way now. So, I'm starting to turn around a little bit on him. But if I had to lean anyway, I'd go with the Gamecocks here.
Yeah, all good points there, Ray. Moving on to the next game here, I think we have people are holding on to this team, in my opinion. It's the Kentucky team facing off Tennessee. Tennessee is now a 17.5-point favorite, total 45. Buyback on Kentucky is plus 625. In my opinion, people are holding off to that Kentucky loss to Georgia, right? They didn't win the game. They lost, but they covered, Ray. They covered, and that's what some people remember. But you don't want to hold on to a loss. So talk to me about this game, Ray.
Well, I think two games are certainly influencing people's opinion on Kentucky. That would be the close loss to UGA, and then I believe they beat Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, 2017, they did beat Mississippi.
So I think those are the two games that's sticking in everyone's craw, so to speak. This Tennessee team is a charged-up team. Their rating is playoff worthy, is indicating that they are going to be a playoff team. But again, when we talk about a 12-team playoff with the 4 automatic bursts, Power 4 champions all go in automatic, it starts to get questioning in the SEC. How many teams can the SEC put in? Like, there's going to be some cannibalization as we go down the stretch here. So, I don't think you can let in an ACC or a Big Ten team with 2 losses. But I think there's going to be some SEC teams that could finish with 2 losses, and maybe even a number of them. Hell, maybe the damn conference champion finishes with 2 losses at this rate. But this Tennessee team, obviously, they're in good position. They are off a bye as they host Kentucky. Kentucky 1-18 straight up in Knoxville since 1986. I was in high school then, so that how long ago that was. You can see there's nothing but gray hair left on me. And 5-14 against the number in Knoxville since '86. So no reason, no historical reason to be jumping all over Kentucky here. And they've had some decent teams. It's not like Stoops invented football at Kentucky. They've had some competitive teams at Kentucky in the past. I'm thinking back to, I think it was Jared Lorenzen. He was like a 300-pound quarterback that was just absolutely ridiculous. And there was one game I remember succinctly in his career, Jared Lorenzen. He had a brief career. I think he may have still been playing in like the Arena League or something, but he literally played till he was like 375 pounds at quarterback. Massive dude. He threw like 4 picks in the first half in the rivalry game against Louisville one year, and it was in Kentucky. And he walks to the sideline after his 4th pick, and there's literally fans are walking out in the first half. They're like, "I'm out, dude. You suck." And he was shouting at them, "You have no idea what you're about to miss. You have no idea what you're about to miss. You're not going to want to leave. You don't want to leave." He was screaming at these fans. Of course, he rallied them back and ended up beating Louisville in that game. A really cool character. I'm not even sure if he's still alive, but he was playing football.
He passed away.
Yes. I thought I remember hearing news that he was a big, massive man. He was a big dude that played like arena ball like later in life. And, But my point was Kentucky's had some decent teams and some decent players in the past. Head coach Stoops, again, for a guy that gets a ton of credit, going into this year, 2-28 straight up versus winning SEC teams with a winning record. So, again, when he plays an SEC team with a winning record, he's won 2 out of 30. So for a guy that's like revolutionized football in Kentucky and seems to have, the pulse on the Kentucky football, finger on the pulse of Kentucky football, winning 2 out of 30 against SEC teams with a winning record is not quite, you're not really revolutionizing anything there. Tennessee 28-10 against the spread since 1987, and Tennessee 10-2 in the last 12. So all indicators here point to Tennessee. The number's probably about right where it should be. But Tennessee's the much better team today. But again, minds are going to linger on the fact that Kentucky stayed close with Georgia and beat Mississippi. So if they can do that, certainly they can hang with this Tennessee team. Just, for those of you thinking that way, I have Tennessee ranked higher than Georgia. My ratings, I have Tennessee higher than Georgia, and I'm just double checking on Mississippi, but I think they're relatively equal to Mississippi. So in my ratings, just a touch below them. So I look for Tennessee to get it done here in Knoxville. Tough place to play. Over 100,000 there on the river in Knoxville.
I do like that Tennessee team today in this spot, honestly, right? Our next game we have is the Louisville at Clemson game. This is one of the games that the great Nick Bogdanovich, Circa Sports oddsmaker, has told me that he likes the over on this game. So total Louisville, Clemson, a 10.5-point favorite here. Total 62. This has gone fluctuating between, I know it started in the 59 range or somewhere around there, all the way up to 62, or it was up to 63, now back to 62, excuse me. Buyback on the Louisville Cardinals here is plus 310. Talk to me about this one, Ray.
Louisville at Clemson. Clemson is off a bye here. This is the first meeting ever between Jeff Brom and Dabo Swinney. Clemson, Bogdanovich obviously sharper than a damn tack. That's one thing I'll say for sure. And he's probably a guy that would have jumped the opening number on that total. So he probably got a bunch of value on that. And I love where his mind's at, because it really, the turning point for Clemson was the loss to Georgia in week 1. Garrett Riley got the reins from Dabo. Dabo said, hell, we can't lose again. So cut it loose, young man, cut it loose. And by God, he's cut it loose at Clemson. If you look at the points they piled up, they're just piling up points. They're piling up yards. Their rating is improving by the week. They are a team on the rise. The Brom teams. So Brom's a coach at Western Kentucky and Purdue. 30 wins, 20 losses, and 1 tie again as dogs, with 17 outright upsets. So again, for Jeff Brom to come in here and pull the upset, is it going to be a shocker? Maybe a little bit, but not really if you look at those numbers. 17 outright upsets as a dog, at Western Kentucky and Purdue prior to being at Louisville. So he's a coach that does know how to perform well in the dog role. Clemson has won the last 8 and has gone 6-2 against the spread in those 8 games. 4 of the last 5 Clemson wins versus Louisville were by 15 points. So again, I actually like, if I had to play this game, I would certainly be leaning on the Bogdanovich angle of over. This just, both offenses are very talented. Clemson does not take their foot off the pedal anymore. I think they know what position they're in. They've got a big tilt on deck next week. They come here to Blacksburg. That game was put on a 6-day hold for a start time. I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to all this TV and flex stuff, but my guess is if Virginia Tech wins and Clemson wins, this game will be moved into the 7:30 night slot here in Blacksburg, which will have the Night Enter Sandman entrance rocking and rolling. It's a totally different atmosphere. I think if one or both of these teams slip up today in Tech or Clemson, honestly, I think that game could actually slide to a noon slot, which kind of would suck the air out of it in Blacksburg. It's just not the same. People can't tailgate quite as good getting ready at 9 in the morning as they can for a 7:30 at night game. So interested to see how this one turns out, because it'll have a direct effect on what happens here in Blacksburg next week. I just think Clemson, these are 2 really good. These are 2 solid teams. I think Clemson has a great chance to make the playoff again. We're going to have to it's going to come down to, how many ACC teams can make it. Certainly Clemson and Miami being in the playoff, I don't think would shock anybody. We'll see how that season wraps up, but in that regard, excited for this one. I think Clemson just has too many horses. If, Miami went to Louisville earlier in a very similar, Miami's rated a little higher than Clemson in my ratings, but that game was at Louisville. I'd have a totally different opinion on this game if it would be playing in Papa John's Stadium there. But in Death Valley, hard to side against Clemson and Dabo Swinney. Did not bet it, but it's Clemson or nothing for me here. And the over, I love the overlook by Bogdanovich.
Yeah, and just all good points there, Ray. Going on the next one here, we have Pittsburgh on the road to face SMU. SMU is a 7.5-point favorite here, total 56. Buyback on the Pittsburgh is plus 235. What do you like in this one?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. Going into this game, I have Pitt rated, slightly higher. Again, I didn't dig deeply into the level of opponent. I may have on this game because certainly was a borderline game for me. There was a couple things that I definitely was looking at in this game. There it was. Yeah, SMU has played the tougher schedule up to this point. So, for those of you, we always talk about rating the rating. So just having a rating for a team's great, but if a team's played, like a Missouri who's played a tremendously soft schedule versus a Kentucky who's played, Georgia, and they played Ole Miss, and now they're playing Tennessee, that you have to adjust that. You have to rate the rating, right? So the first step I always do is I go in and I write down the rating of all the opponents that they have played up to that point. So that kind of gives you an idea. You can, if you don't want to do that much work that I'm doing, feel free to go in and utilize various sites have strength of schedule. The reason I don't use that is because I don't know what they're basing it on in some cases. Like, is it just some guy behind a desk's opinion on who has the hardest schedule, or are they actually data driven? When I do it myself, I'm using my own ratings, so I'm rating the rating. But this game, honestly, it's a bit of a high number. I do like SMU here, but Narduzzi is just an absolutely fantastic player. He just keeps on keeping on with very little, and I don't quite know why it's so hard to recruit at Pitt. I mean, you get an NFL facility, you share a facility with an NFL team. If you show out in college, there's an NFL team that's taking a very close look at you every day, every game, every practice, that kind of thing. Pitt 30-18 against the spread on the road under Narduzzi. They are dogs here. A comfortable spot for Narduzzi, a fantastic football coach. Rhett Lashley is on the other side, another good one at SMU. However, Pitt 0-6 as an away dog in 22 and 23. So recent bias is against Pitt, but overall, Narduzzi has no issues against the spread on the road. SMU has won the last 3 versus Pitt, and head coach Rhett Lashley was the offensive coordinator at Miami in 20 and 21, and he put up 69 points and 821 yards versus Pitt when he was the OC at Miami. So again, that's very recent history. 2020 and 21, those were Narduzzi coached Pitt teams. Rhett Lashley as an OC at Miami poured on the numbers against him. So obviously he has a plan of attack against the Narduzzi run Pitt Panther offense. So again, I look for, I lean toward SMU here. This should be this is a very pivotal game. It's in the standings of the ACC. So exciting game to watch. SMU gets the home field. I think the number's a bit high for my liking, but this should just be a fantastic ball game between two strong coaches.
Yeah, all great points there, Ray. And I just want to go back to the Army game. Philip here, it says the Army starting quarterback is out, but it shouldn't really make that big of a difference, he believes. So he is doubling up on Army first half minus 9.5. So that's the reason why this number was gone down from 22 to now 17.5 at circa. So that is the reasoning behind that live movement there. Last game we have, Ray, is two more games quick. We have TCU on the road to face Baylor. Baylor is a 3-point favorite here, total 62.5. Buyback in the TCU is plus 124. What do you like in this one?
TCU Baylor game played in Waco, Texas. So there's certain guys and coaches that I get wrapped around, and it's like I don't want to say I fall in love with them, but I love the way they coach ball. Their offensive coordinator, TCU's offensive coordinator, is Kendall Briles. He's the son of another great coordinator. This guy's just a nasty, nasty offensive coordinator. I mean, he schemes it up. He's very Spurrier-like. You tend to see, if you watch this TCU Baylor game, I'm going to go ahead and guess you're going to see at least 1 to 2 plays where a TCU receiver makes a catch and there's not a Baylor defender within sight on the screen. As good of an athlete, these are all good athletes. You go to TCU or Baylor to play football, you are a freak athlete. But that being said, freak athletes don't just get buck wide open unless they're schemed that way. You will see Kendall Briles scheme a couple like that up today in Waco against Baylor. TCU's on an 8-1 straight up run versus Baylor. Since 2015, Baylor has 1 win versus TCU and are 3-6 against the spread in that time. Again, since 2015, Baylor has 1 win versus TCU and are 3-6 against the spread in that time period. Baylor defensively giving up 400 yards a game and averaging about 405 on offense. The TCU defense is a little better at 370 a game, but again, Kendall Briles, 437 yards per game on offense. TCU's got the rating advantage, but again, if you calculate in home field for two teams that have played a relatively equal schedule, this game really should be probably a little closer to a pick. But I think I like TCU a little bit better here in this game. The numbers don't necessarily indicate it, but I look for Bryles to kind of dial a few up against the Baylor team that sort of seems to be a bit hot and cold this year.
Sounds good, Ray. Last game we have on the dock is UCLA on the road to face Nebraska. Nebraska is a 7-point favorite here, total 38.5. Now, this UCLA team is in a rebuilding stage with their new coach, Deshaun Foster. Talk to me about this one. Do you think UCLA can cover? Because they've been feisty as of late, but I don't know if this is a tough task to face against Nebraska here. Talk to me about this one, Ray.
Yeah, you snuck this one in on me, damn. This little UCLA Nebraska. You just throw a little knuckleball at me at the end. Just looking at the numbers here, UCLA's given up 370 yards defensively. They did lose their defensive coordinator. It's a new staff at UCLA. Offensively, again, UCLA, the issue here may be the 300 yards per game. They're allowing other teams to run about 7 more plays per game than they are. At this one, I got nothing for you, to be honest, on this one. I mean,
Gotcha.
I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan of UCLA at all.
No, I'm really not. And watching them, it's been kind of, hot or cold with them. They either kind of play really well or they really don't. And honestly, I've caught them playing better at home than they have done on the road. So this would be a point for me to kind of lean towards Nebraska. Wouldn't hammer it. But again, I think Nebraska laying that 7 might be useful to you in your betting on your betting page.
Nebraska does bring a much better defense into the game as well. So
yeah, so that's why you also see the total here, 38.5. So also, thank you to all who listen to your college football game plan. We really enjoy you guys listening. We do this every week for you guys. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Moneyline Miller, at Ray Greyfox. And make sure you go to nukethehouse.com. That's where you can find all of our best bets and all of our plays. So, Ray, any closing statements you have today?
Just want to thank the entire Moneyline Miller family for always watching, being strong there for us. We appreciate you, Millers. Thank you. Want to wish everybody good luck today. Week 10 college football. Too many good games out there. Pick the ones you like, bet the ones you can, and you feel you have an advantage at. And I hope everybody has a winning day.
Yes, everyone. Thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, Pie Bets.